Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the golden age of the symphony, 1920 to 1929. This is the third in our series of golden age videos where we talk about the fact that, well, it's only logical that people couldn't write symphonic music until symphony orchestras existed to play them. And for the most part, the modern symphony orchestra did not exist until the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. And then, not surprisingly, poof, people started writing symphonies, many great symphonies and other orchestral works too, for these fabulous new orchestras. And really, it was an amazing thing, right, Finster? Yes. There she is. Right, Finster? Don't you agree? Yes, of course you agree. So there we go. Anyway, let's talk about these fabulous symphonies written in the 1920s. Oh, they're getting so interesting. You know, each decade seems to have something new or some wonderful people popping up who didn't make it into the previous decade, but may continue into the one following, like Torina. Who thinks of Turina when you think of symphonies? But he did write the Sinfonía sevillana. Oh my God, it's gorgeous, in 1920. And he was one of the very few Spanish composers to actually write a symphony. I mean, that was a big dealo in 1920. It still is kind of. Spanish composers tended not to be symphonists. They wrote tone poems, they wrote other things, but boy, is that a gorgeous work. It's really sort of three tone poems stuffed together as a symphony, and it's very, very descriptive and incredibly gorgeous melodically and glittery orchestrally. And I don't know why it isn't played every 15 minutes. I mean, it's just beautiful, absolutely lovely. So there's that. Then we go to France for Roussel, Symphony No. 2 of 1921, one of the absolute great French symphonies, and certainly probably the greatest 20th century symphony in like that Frankian style, three movements with, a sort of combined scherzo slow movement and motto themes all over the place. And my God, it's marvelous. It's one of those symphonies that doesn't get a lot of play because it's harmonically acerbic. It's kind of dissonant and it ends softly. It's a very serious work. I mean, it's really serious. It's no bullshit. It's an incredible piece. Absolutely incredible. After Roussel, Vaughan Williams, of course, he's been popping up rather frequently, but he had a nice, happy, long life and wrote symphonies throughout it. Some of them absolutely fantastic. His third symphony, a pastoral symphony, 1922, reflecting his own experience of World War I. Actually not a battle scene, but rather being stationed in France and remembering the quiet and the ominousness and the sort of the implacability of nature while all this mishegas was going on around him. It's an extraordinary work, a beautiful work, and really, really haunting. After that, 1922, Nielsen, Symphony No. 5. Another one of the really great 20th century symphonies. I mean, just an astoundingly fabulous piece of music, like nobody else's, with a completely original form and completely original content. I mean, you've got the snare drum slamming out its way, to try to stop the progress of the orchestra, and the regeneration of the second movement and a couple of fugues and things. And oh, wow. I mean, it's amazing. It sounds like nobody else. It's just an extraordinary work. I mean, these are really screaming masterpieces we're talking about. And I know they're 100 years old now, right? They are. But, people who only think classical music is like old, I mean, 100 years is not very much. And when I was born in 1961, they were contemporary. I mean, 40 years old, 30 years old, These pieces they should give us hope, because great music is always being written. It takes a few years to catch up. It doesn't always impinge on our consciousness. The means of transmittal and reception change decade after decade, and now we have, AI and digital thingies and streaming hoogies and all that stuff. But I truly believe that the music is out there. and the great composers are out there. They may be writing for film, they may be doing other types of music or non-traditional forms, but it's out there. There's no question that it's out there. Ives, Symphony No. 4 from 1924. Well, there's a little bit of controversy about where this symphony goes because a lot of people date it to 1916. It would have gone in the last talk. But the reality is that Ives probably didn't finish the second movement until the 1920s. I mean, you know Ives. I mean, nothing was going to get performed anyway, so he was always tinkering and revising and whatnot. So I stuck the Fourth Symphony in this particular decade, and I hope nobody will be too upset with me as long as we stick it in there somewhere. Sibelius, Symphony No. 7. That's the same year as Ives' Fourth. Now, isn't that interesting? You know, that's the cool thing about this, the disparity of styles and, you know, whether they're nationalistic or aesthetic or, you know, compositional techniques. And yeah, Sibelius's last symphony, which was enormously influential, was actually composed in the same year as Ives' Fourth and around the same time as Nielsen's Fifth. It's very, very different kinds of music. And that's what makes this so wonderful, as is Schulhoff, Symphony No. 1. Wow. I love Schulhoff, and his first symphony is one of his Dadaist works. It has a flexitone in it, you know, it's based on Czech folk music for the most part, songs and dances orchestrated with a kind of, you know, garish glee in the sounds of this. It's a small orchestra, but with lots of percussion, and so it's very gaudy and very rhythmic and lots of fun. It's a wonderful work. If you don't know it, you really should hear it. It's refreshing and joyful, and it's almost an anti-symphony. It's not trying to be serious and deep and profound, just the opposite. It's a little crazy and confrontational at the same time because of that. And it's wonderful. Shostakovich. Here he is. Symphony No. 1 from 1925. He has arrived. And a new symphonist is born. And he's going to be doing amazing things. It's very interesting, actually, that Shostakovich, who was not, you know, I mean, his first symphony, he wasn't all that well known when he wrote his first symphony, but it was immediately taken up by, you know, conductors like Bruno Walter and, you know, Stokowski and those folks. You know, fascinating how this piece, people knew right away that they had something special on their hands, somebody who was really, you know, an up-and-comer. And so he proved to be, although it took a little time until his other symphonies sunk in, because remember, the second and third were socialist realist pieces. The fourth he had to withdraw because he was going to get killed by Stalin, and then he wrote the fifth, and boom, he was on the international circuit immediately. Kurt Atterberg, his Symphony No. 6, the Dollar Symphony of 1928. This was the symphony that won first prize in the Schubert Centenary, the Death of Schubert Centenary Symphony contest, sponsored by Columbia, the Columbia Gramophone Company, or whatever it was called in those days. And Atterberg won. I think it was Franz Schmidt came in second with his third symphony. But the Kurt Atterberg Sixth, it's fun. It's delightful. The finale is actually amusing. I mean, a funny symphony. The very ending is hysterically charming, and, well, it's tuneful and colorful, like everything Atterberg wrote. Some of you have mentioned some of his previous symphonies already in this series, and rightly so. He was a very fine symphonist, and his works ought to be played more. They really should. And last but not least, one of my personal favorites, Arnold Bax, Symphony No. 2. This is just yummy. I mean, Bax would go on to write 7 symphonies in total, and the second is still my favorite. I just think it's a Frankian 3-movement motto theme kind of thing, with a beautiful, beautiful motto theme. You know, it's like da 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 dum bum ba da. It's nice and grim, and it has this legendary quality and luscious tunes and sexy chromatic harmony. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. This is quite a list. I mean, looking over it, these are all beautiful major works by distinctive and fascinating composers. The 1920s was a wonderful time. If you happened to be writing symphonies, it was a terrible time like everywhere else. It was, eventually it was, the Roaring Twenties that wound up with the Great Depression, and it was the recovery from World War One, and, the circumstances surrounding the creation of these pieces were pretty dire in some places, but boy, these composers are good, and this music is really terrific. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.